And I did 2 weeks ago, I believe. I actually went down and asked the guy to stop when he was jet washing at about 10 to 7 in the morning, because it actually woke us up. It was one of the hot days when the windows were open, so we hear it, and it is it's loud enough to wake you when you're in that stirring state of sleep. So I have kept a log in the past, and I believe I submitted that to Environmental Health back in 2020. I'm willing to keep a log if necessary again. Normally I'm out of the door by 7:30, but I'm usually home by 5:30, and then I sit in the garden for the evening. And that's when it really impacted us. After a busy day at school or in the office for my husband, you just need that downtime to decompress, and using the garden has been a bit of a saviour for us.
Okay, thank you. Any other members have a question? No, nobody online? Okay, Ms McCurley, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. Thank you for letting me speak.
And I will now open questions from members. And I would just like a question to make a clarification and put it as a question to comply with my own rules. Am I right in saying a little? It's an approval for the canopy to cover the jet wash, which should reduce the sound. Part of that covering is that you're recommending that the holes are filled, which would further deaden the sound. The hours, as you stated, are the new hours that we have put on this planning application for this evening. So should this application succeed, am I right in saying that they would be the hours from now on? Is that right?
That's absolutely right, yes. The use doesn't need permission. It's all part of the car washing use. Sorry, the car dealership use. It's the canopy that covers the equipment that is under consideration. Should this be granted, the mitigation measures, both physical, in terms of the jet wash, the reduced power jet wash, and the insulation and holding up the gaps would be required to be installed prior to the use becoming into effect, and also the hours of operation, which have been reduced further on the supplementary report. So the original committee report stated 9 to 5 on Saturday, and that's been updated to 9 to midday on Saturday. So if this is granted, those would be the hours of operation, yes.
Thank you, Olivia. Do members have any questions? Councillor Birch, and then Councillor Virgo, and then Councillor Brown. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. From the member of the public speaker, it would appear, and that's my only source of evidence, that the timings, putting limited timings in our conditions, doesn't appear to work. That is GEMCA, because they are the applicant and they are the owners of the site, are failing to comply already with it. Now, how long will the member of the public have to keep a log of these breaches before we can take enforcement action? Thank you.
In terms of the timings, I don't know exactly how long our enforcement department require logs to be taken. I will say that at the moment, there are no conditions restricting hours because the whole development is unlawful. Well, the canopy installation is unlawful. So should this permission be granted, the conditions would be imposed and our enforcement team would be able to take action if there are any breaches. Whereas at the moment, the only element they can take action against is the installation of the canopy itself, not the jet washing, because the jet washing doesn't need planning permission. It's just the canopy that needed the permission. But if this canopy is granted, we can then control what's going on inside the canopy and those hours as well.
Councillor Virgo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Olivia, can I just ask, can we put a condition that they cannot use this until an inspection from our team has gone out there to make sure that they had delivered what we've asked them to deliver.
If you look in the report, you'll see that a noise inspection has been carried out.
Not now. I'm talking, Mr. Chairman. There's obviously going to be alterations, though, isn't there, to it? Because we're not happy with the jet washing, and there's covering holes and all kinds of things, isn't there?
No, this is a retrospective application, and so my understanding is that there has been a noise survey undertaken by our officers since the canopy has been erected. Olivia, can you just clarify?
I'm slightly confused then, Mr. Chairman, because
so one of the conditions requires the implementation of further noise mitigation measures before the use of the equipment. At the moment, the wording is simply that these mitigation measures need to be undertaken. It could be rephrased to require the submission of a report once they're undertaken for us to review. I'm just thinking of enforceable wording of the condition, and I think the best way to do it would be for them to submit a report which shows, for example, with photographs, that everything has been done prior to the use. If that would make the members feel more comfortable with this application.
Okay, we'll see how that goes. All right, thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the mirror situation that must be clear of vegetation. Can we possibly alter that to be that it must be clean and clear of any obstruction? Because I think in the industrial situation, it's more likely to be covered in grime. And
have you looked in the supplementary report?
That is from the supplementary report.
The on-site mirrors shall be kept clear of vegetation to any.
That's what I'm saying, not just vegetation, any obstruction, and be clean. Please, is that possible, please?
I that would be yes, that would be a simple amendment to make. I don't see any problem with the wording of that in terms of enforcement. No.
No, clean and clear of any obstruction, please.
Sorry, Councillor Dr. Barnard.
My question was answered, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ballyboe.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just confirm the application applies solely to the structure, am I right?
Correct.
And
yes,
the conditions also apply solely to the structure?
To the use of the structure.
To the use of the structure. And can you also confirm that they don't need the permission to use the jet wash on site?
That's correct.
Okay, so there is nothing stopping them, for example, for using the jet wash outside the structure after 12 p.m. or after whatever the condition is.
Olivia, do you want to answer?
Yep, that is right. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so can I then ask, I don't know whether this is a question or not, can I ask that the condition states that this condition that we're putting in terms of time and restriction applies to the site, not the structure?
No, because that's outside of the application site.
Yeah.
Also, I would consider that unreasonable given they can do it now. What has changed with this application that means it's no longer acceptable when it was previously?
The application site is the structure.
No,
we can only on this application control really what goes on as to the use of that structure. They could, if they wanted to, jet wash or any other use that is to do with running a car dealership anywhere in the site at all.
Even right beside.
Sorry?
Even right beside or outside that structure.
Yeah, anyway, there's no current control. In fact, if you think about it, what we're doing here and what GEMCA are proposing, what the applicant is proposing, is going to be far better than the current situation.
No, sorry. Yeah, Chair, I understand that. I was just thinking it's too easy to just use the jet wash outside, and then you bypass the entire
Then why would they
condition.
have built but then why would they have built the structure? They obviously they want to do it in all weathers, don't they?
Yeah, true.
Any other questions, members? Okay. So there's no other questions. I'll move the officer recommendation, which is on page 28 and page 1 of the supplementary report, and also with that amendment of the condition on the supplementary report with regards to the mirror that Councillor Brown, suggested. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Badibo, thank you. Members, as I think I've just explained, this application is just for the site. You know, you heard the public speaker earlier saying that since the structure has been erected, life has been so much better for the residents. You also heard the public speaker say that if the hours could be restricted, as per the restriction that we are suggesting in the supplementary report, which is that they do finish at 12 o'clock on a Saturday and nothing at all on Sundays or public holidays, that would be even better. And I think you'll find that that is what we've done here with the officer and with the agreement of the applicant. I do want to reiterate the fact that jet washing or any activity that's to do with the running of car dealership can take place anywhere on the site. So I think that this is going to make the lives of the residents somewhat easier. The mirror vegetation thing, the reason that's on there is because we found out that there were some complaints from the environmental health to the environmental health that because of the blocked corner, they were beeping their horn as they went round the corner because the mirror wasn't able to be seen. And that's why we've asked for that additional condition to be put on there so that it negates them having to beep their horn as they go round the corner because they'll be able to see in the mirror. So seconder wish to speak?
Yes, Chair. I'll be supporting, and the reason why I'm seconding this application and the recommendation is because I think the applicant and our officers have taken and listened to the residents and have been proactive in what they're doing, and I think this should help with the noise level.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Virgo. I've got Councillor Bandari online who wishes to speak.
Thank you, Chair. No, I think this is one of very good examples I have seen of our officers, residents, and the applicant all working together to resolve a challenge or a concern. And from what I've heard, Olivia, first of all, a fantastic presentation. And Ms. McCurley, thanks, for raising this and also for your considered response, acknowledging the changes and the efforts that are being made. So I think overall, it sounds like, the right solution for everyone. So we should be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bandari. Councillor Virgo.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to, I will support it actually, but the condition about the additional mitigation, sound mitigation things, I think should be a condition that we'd like to see those before we agree to it. Particularly as Councillor Birch has made the point that they seem to have been working outside the hours. So, well, that's what was reported, Mr. Chairman. I can only listen to the witness who said it. I would like to ask for a condition that's as Olivia suggested. Thank you.
I'll deal with it in the summing up, if I may. Any other member wish to speak? Okay, the report that they've been working out of hours is I'm sorry, it's incorrect because there were no limits previously on the times of operation on this application. So to report that the applicant has been not taking the hours into consideration is I'm sorry, it's incorrect because there were no restrictions previously. The restrictions will only be in place once this application has been approved, if it's approved by you, the members. And so therefore, with the with the deadening of the sound that this structure is going to give, the restricted use, and the fact that you'll see there is a condition on there that says that they have to use a lower power jet wash. I don't believe that there is any need for any further additional condition. However, I take it that you're proposing that, Councillor Virgo. If you have a seconder for it, we'll put that to the vote and see if it becomes the substantive motion, because that's the way we have to do things. Is that what you're proposing?
Yes, sorry.
All right. So is there a seconder for that?
I'm not trying to make a big deal out of it.
No, but we have to do things as per debate.
Sure.
So is there a seconder for that amendment? Okay, I'm afraid there isn't a seconder, so we revert back to the substantive motion as per the agenda and the supplementary report. All those in favour to approve, please show.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, that's carried. I'd like to say thank you to the Environmental Health Officer that joined us this evening, and I know that she's very busy, and if you want to leave now you can. And I'd also like to thank Ms McCurley for her submission. You're more than welcome to stay on the meeting and see the rest of the fun, but you're more than welcome to leave as well. Okay, right, we move on then to the next item on the agenda. Can I just explain to members, you will see that the next 4 items are all to do with one development. So the way that we're going to deal with this is that the officer, Joe Mel, will give us one presentation that covers all of the 4 different items on the agenda. We will have questions about every single one of those as you see fit. But then after the questions, we will have to move, second, and debate each one of them separately because there are 4 items. Okay, so just to make that clear, we're going to get one presentation, 1 set of questions, and then 4 lots of moving, seconding, and debate. Okay, Joe, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just share my screen, and hopefully you can see that now.
Yes, we can. If you can make it any larger, that would be useful, Joe. Thank you.
Certainly. Hopefully that's better.
That's great,
So,
thank you.
As the Chair mentioned, I'm going to do a single presentation relating to the 4 applications. However, I'll divide it into sections based on the issues or conditions being considered under each application in order to avoid any confusion when it comes to determining each application separately. The application site lies on the northern side of Tilehurst Lane at its western end and is located opposite existing 2-storey residential development located in Pound Place and Coote Close. The site comprises 3 undeveloped fields and sits on grounds which rises east to west. To the northeast of the site lies the Grade 2 star listed Binfield Park, and to its east lies the Grade 2 listed South Lodge and the original gate piers to Binfield Park, which are also Grade 2 listed. This plan shows the context of the site with these listed buildings. The site lies within the countryside as identified within the development plan. In 2019, outline planning permission was allowed on appeal for 40 dwellings, including 10 affordable units, and the provision of an area of public open space known as a heritage park. Details of the heritage park have already been approved pursuant to a condition on the outline permission, and this plan shows you the layout of the heritage park and its footpath connections into the residential part of the site. The issue of access was determined at outline stage and approved a central vehicular access into the site approximately 20 metres south of Pound Place and 2 pedestrian accesses onto Tilehurst Lane, and they can be seen marked in yellow here and here. This plan is showing the approved access arrangements. The first application before you tonight is a reserved matters application that submits details of scale, layout, external appearance and landscaping for the development. Other issues such as drainage, tree protection, biodiversity, site organisation and water efficiency are covered by conditions of the outline planning permission. The reserved matters propose 40 dwellings comprising 11 two-bedroom houses, 12 three-bedroom houses, 7 four-bedroom houses, together with 5 flats, which would be provided in a small apartment block at the eastern end of the site, which is down here. All development would be 2-storey in height, which is considered appropriate to the character of the local area. 10 units of affordable accommodation have previously been secured by a Section 106 agreement signed in respect to the appeal application, and the mix and location of the affordable dwellings is considered satisfactory by the Council's Housing Enabling Officer, as it delivers all of the larger units as affordable rented accommodation. The proposed layout broadly reflects that of the indicative layout considered by the inspector at appeal, although it has been amended since its original submission to achieve a more informal layout using shared surfaces which allow additional planting within the street scene and a looser layout appropriate to the site's semi-rural location. It shows a pedestrian footpath across the frontage of the site, providing linkages to Tilehurst Lane at the approved access points and through to the Heritage Park, and the dwellings are now shown orientated towards this footpath in order to provide surveillance over it. The relocation of development away from the site's southeastern corner is considered to improve the setting of the listed South Lodge when compared with the indicative layout. Parking is provided either in garages, on plot, or within small parking courts. It meets the Council's adopted standards and provides 2 additional visitor parking spaces, which are well spaced across the development. The design of the proposed dwellings is traditional and is considered to be appropriate to the character of the area. They are well detailed using porches, chimneys and brickwork detailing, and details of the materials can be secured by condition. And I'm going to show you some examples of the elevations of the dwelling. So this is the dwelling proposed for plot 1 in the northwest corner of the site adjacent to the Heritage Park. These are the pair of semis on plots 8 and 9. They're at the front of the site looking onto the pedestrian footpath. This is plots 19 to 21, the terrace of 3 dwellings facing the eastern boundary of the site, which provide affordable accommodation. This is plots 24 and 25, a pair of semis within the site. Plots 31 and 33, 31 to 33, a terrace of 3 dwellings within the site. And finally, plots 34 to 40, the apartment block and attached units at the eastern end of the site, which also provide affordable accommodation. A comprehensive landscaping scheme has been submitted for the site. This has recently been revised to replace previously proposed ornamental species with native planting more appropriate to the semi-rural location of the area. The boundary screening along the site's frontage to Tilehurst Lane will be retained, other than where its removal is required in order to facilitate the provision of the vehicular and pedestrian access points, and measures for its protection have already been approved pursuant to a condition on the original outline permission. In conclusion, in relation to the reserved matters application, the principle of development of the site for 40 units was established on appeal, with the details of the access to the site also being approved at this time. This reserved matters application submits details of the scale, layout, external appearance and landscaping of the proposed development. These details are considered acceptable and proposes a form of development which responds to the semi-rural character of the area, so the recommendation is for approval. The second application before you on the agenda submits details pursuant to conditions relating to finished floor levels, site organisation during construction, biodiversity enhancements and drainage, and I'll look at these individual conditions in turn. In relation to levels, there's a 10-metre difference in levels across the developable part of the site. In order to ameliorate the impact of this change in levels, ground levels across the site have been built up marginally at the eastern end and reduced at the western end. Any further change in levels would be likely to impact on drainage across the site or the ability to provide level access to the area of public open space to the west. This plan provides a cross-section of the site which shows the visual impact of this change in levels. As now proposed, the development achieves level access to all properties. In a limited number of instances, this cannot be achieved to the front of the dwelling, and in these cases, it is provided to the rear from the point where a person is most likely to alight from a vehicle, with a ramped access being provided to the rear door. This approach is entirely consistent with the building regulations and can be seen on this extract from the plans. This shows level access into the garden from the rear parking area and then a ramped access to the back door. In instances where there is a change in levels within the back garden, level platforms have been provided for bin storage in order to ensure their easy movement to the front of the property. And this is shown on this extract of the plan. We've got level access to the rear of the property and the bin store before you have the steps up into the rear garden. The submitted details now show ramped access at an appropriate gradient and along all footpaths serving the area of public open space. In relation to site organisation and the working method statement, a revised SEMP has been submitted and is referred to on the supplementary report. This document covers a number of issues, including the routing of vehicles to the site, the timing of deliveries and parking within the site to minimise the impact of construction traffic on the nursery located at the northern end of Tilehurst Lane and adjacent residential properties. Following discussion with the Highways Officer, it is proposed that construction traffic will be routed to the site from the northwestern end of Tilehurst Lane from Terrace Road North, rather than being allowed to access the site from the southeast along the length of Tilehurst Lane. It's noted that the northwestern end of the lane has a footway to separate pedestrians from vehicles, and this is not present at the southeastern end of Tilehurst Lane. A total of 4 letters of objection have been received which refer to concerns about the routing of construction vehicles from the north. This is an issue which has been very carefully considered by the Highway Authority, and their comments on why the proposed routing is considered appropriate are set out in paragraph 9.15 on page 58 of the agenda. The SEMP also includes details of storage and parking within the site to ensure that no overspill parking impacts on local residents. A working hours restriction was placed on the original outline permission and specifies that no demolition or construction work shall take place outside the hours of 8 AM to 7 PM Monday to Friday, 8 AM and 1 PM on Saturday, and not at all on Sundays or public holidays. Condition 14 relates to the provision of biodiversity enhancements. These are shown on this plan and indicate log piles as yellow squares, rubble piles as orange squares, bat boxes as dark blue circles and bird boxes in the light blue circles. These are considered acceptable by the Council's Biodiversity Officer. This application also submits details pursuant to the drainage conditions imposed on the original permission. During the course of the appeal, the inspector considered an overarching drainage strategy for the site, and conditions 23 and 24 required submission of a detailed drainage scheme consistent with the principles agreed at outline stage. The drainage scheme shows surface water runoff being drained via a piped network and a network of swales to an attenuation basin on the southeast edge of the site. So this is the pipes system. You've got the swales at the front of the site, and then it drains to the attenuation basin in this corner. This will discharge into Thames Water Sewer in Tilehurst Lane at a rate of 9 litres per second, which is consistent with the Greenfield runoff rate. Thames Water have been consulted and have confirmed that they have no objection to this, and the Council's drainage consultant has confirmed that the submitted details, which include wildlife-friendly construction details, are acceptable. Moving to the third application on the agenda, this submits details pursuant to conditions 20 and 21 of the outline planning permission relating to energy, an energy statement and water efficiency measures. These conditions were imposed by the inspector at the request of the local planning authority in order to ensure that the development addresses the requirements of policies CS10 and CS12 of the core strategy. The energy report establishes a baseline energy demand for the development and associated carbon emissions using the methodology set out in Part L1A of the building regulations. It identifies a reduction in carbon emissions of 4.5% against the 2013 version of the building regs and a 5.5% reduction in energy demand, which will be achieved through fabric and building efficiency measures, e.g. through thermal efficiency and ensuring that good practice air tightness targets are achieved. It then assesses the appropriateness of various forms of renewable technology for the site before concluding that air source heat pumps are the most suitable, as they have an efficient conversion rate from energy to heat, they're low maintenance, and they have a low visual impact. The report indicates that use of air source heat pumps will facilitate a saving of 53% in the energy requirements of the site through the use of renewables, which represents a carbon saving of 16%. The Council's Renewable Energy Officer has reviewed the report and concludes that the details of energy demand reduction and use of air source heat pumps will address the requirements of Policy CS12. Details of the proposed air source heat pumps have been submitted, and these will be sited at ground floor level on garages where properties have them, or on the rear elevation of the dwelling where they don't. Therefore, they will have very limited visibility, if any, from beyond the plot boundaries. Condition 21 required it to be demonstrated that average water use from the new dwellings would not exceed 110 litres per person per day. This equates to a best practice target set out in the building regulations. A water use assessment has been submitted for each dwelling based on its size, likely occupancy, capacity flow rate of various appliances and their use. Whilst a planning condition cannot restrict the level of water use in any individual property, the submitted information demonstrates that the predicted water consumption would meet the required target, and accordingly the submitted details are considered acceptable. The final application before you tonight submits details pursuant to conditions 10 and 17 of the outline planning permission relating to cycle parking and street lighting. This plan shows details of the cycle storage, which is to be provided within appropriately sized garages in the plots that have them, within sheds located in the rear gardens of the houses without garages, and within a designated cycle store in the ground floor of the apartment block. These details comply with the council standards for cycle parking and are considered acceptable. In terms of the lighting scheme, this has been designed in close cooperation with the council's highway lighting officer. The starting point for this was to identify those areas that should be adopted, as the council has standard lighting requirements for such areas. This plan shows the areas to be adopted shaded green. They include the pedestrian routes along the site's frontage and connecting to the area of public open space at the western end of the development. These areas will be lit with the council's standard 5-metre high lighting columns using LED lanterns. These have a galvanised steel finish, which complies with the council's standard and minimises the future maintenance burden on the council. All lights would use electronic dimmable drivers, which would allow the light level to be dimmed throughout the night in accordance with the timings based on those set out in paragraph 9.6 of the report, subject to seasonal adjustment through connection to the Talensa central management system. For the parts of the site which are not intended for adoption, low-level bollard lighting would be provided. These would be 1.5 metre high galvanised steel bollards finished in metallic dark grey. The position of the lighting columns has been agreed with the highway lighting officer in order to provide an appropriate light spill to ensure pedestrian and highway safety, whilst limiting its environmental impacts on key areas, particularly the tree belts to the north and west of the site and the Tilehurst Lane frontage. This plan includes the lux contours of the scheme, which shows the light spill from a specific luminaire. Areas where the light spill will be 1 lux are enclosed by the dark blue line, and a light spill of 0.6 lux is shown by the pink line. For information, 1 lux is considered to be the equivalent of full moonlight, and light spill would only be considered intrusive where it's 2 lux adjacent to a residential window, and this does not occur in any instance on the submitted scheme. It's considered that the proposed level of lighting is appropriate to the character of the area and represents the optimum position between providing sufficient lighting to ensure highway and pedestrian safety, whilst minimising the development's impact upon the character and amenities of the area. The council's highway lighting engineer has confirmed that the lighting of all areas to be adopted complies with the council standards, and that it would be inappropriate to use bollards in these areas, as it's not possible to provide an appropriate standard of lighting, and they would impose a significant maintenance burden on the council. The biodiversity officer has confirmed that the scheme is acceptable from a biodiversity perspective, and accordingly approval of the submitted details is recommended. So I'm now going to show you a few photos of the site. This shows the Tilehurst Lane boundary of the site looking north, with the access to Pound Place on the left. This is a view looking south from Pound Place and shows the approximate position of the access in here. This shows the position of the access with the tree on the left to be removed. The arrow shows the position of a bird scarer within the site and is identified so you can identify the position of the access point within the site in a following photo. This photo is taken from within the site and shows its southern boundary with South Lodge, which is the pink building and the adjacent cattery. This shows the northern boundary, the mature trees which screen it from Binfield Park, and these are located beyond the boundary of the site. And this photo shows the western boundary and the rising ground towards the Heritage Park. This photo shows the site's boundary with Tilehurst Lane from within the site, with the arrow showing the approximate position of the access. And this photo shows the remainder of the site's southern boundary to Tilehurst Lane. And then I've got a few images just from Google Street View that show the pedestrian footway, which is currently present on the southern side of Tilehurst Lane as it goes towards Terrace Road North. And in this one, it shows the lack of footpath looking south or southeast towards Church Lane. In conclusion, the principle of the development of the site for 40 units was established on appeal. The Reserve Matters application submits details of the scale, layout, external appearance and landscaping of the proposed development. These details are considered acceptable and propose a form of development which responds to the semi-rural character of the area. Details have been submitted pursuant to multiple conditions on the outline permission and are considered acceptable for the reasons set out in the various reports in front of the committee, such that the applications are recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jo, and well done for the presentation, keeping it so that we can understand which application each part of your presentation related to. So thank you for that. Members, do you have any questions? And when you ask your question, if you could tell us which application you're asking your question about. Thank you. Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Dale Birch. Which part? It's just out of interest question, but you used in your last, that's Con 80, 080 Con, the term not intended for adoption, and then later on in all areas to be adopted. I couldn't find in that report or the Reserve Matters any comment about parts of the site that the authority wouldn't, road, etc., that the authority is not adopting. Are we adopting only part, some, or all?
Yes, if I could respond to that, Chair. So and perhaps it might help if I go back to the plan that was in the presentation, if that's okay, because it did include details of which areas are going to be adopted. Sorry, I just need to find it. Right, this plan here. So those areas highlighted in green are those areas for adoption. And as you can see, they include the footpath along the front of the site and all footpaths that link through to the public open space. And then these main areas of the access road. The areas that are hatched orange are not to be adopted, and so they would come under the maintenance of the private management company, and that has been secured under the terms of the Section 106 agreement that was signed in respect to the original outline permission.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I think mine addresses something in the Treblo 89, item 7. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, just to bring your mic closer. It just sometimes there's kind of a sweet spot with these microphones.
Yes, there must be. Oh, now I can hear myself better. Okay, this relates to item number 7, with the about the general layout, site organisation, and so on. There was an objection about heavy traffic on Tilehurst Lane. My question is, are we sure about the ability of Tilehurst Lane to carry so much heavy traffic in terms of weight? It's talked about the width and so on, but what happens if the road can't take, you know, all the heavy traffic to build 40 houses and everything else? Who foots the bill for that?
Right, Andy, do you want to
pick that one up? Thank you. Andy Wells, Highway Development Management. My colleague James Turner has reviewed all of the construction management information submitted and is lane to accept the traffic for this development. And in relation to the other development on Tilehurst Lane at the other end, there have been various surveys undertaken in terms of the road construction of that associated with the Section 278 agreement, and there don't appear to be any concerns equally. So I don't believe there are any issues.
Yes, I did ask subsequently if who foots the bill if we get subsidence. I'm thinking of the road near me.
The Section 278 agreement for formation of the site access requires changes to be made to the carriageway edges, the width along the frontage, etc. And at that point, the engineer responding to the Section 278 will take a view as to whether there are other areas of carriageway which need to be resurfaced or improved at that point associated with the access formation.
Thank you.
So that in that relationship would fall on the developer to undertake, but the engineer will check it.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Thank you, Councillor Brown. I've got two questions online. So first off, we've now been joined by Councillor Mrs. Hayes. Councillor Mrs. Hayes, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. Councillor Mrs. Hayes here. It's just to clarify, because as one can appreciate, I love waste and I like to get my trucks on site. And it was whilst reading the papers, I came to page 32, which says, parking is shown on Kirchlid. This is the parking for visitors parking. And it's stating 10 visitor parking spaces are provided throughout the development. That is 10 total or 10 lots? Because I was trying to get the drawing and it was coming up and it wasn't very clear.
Fine, I'll ask Andy. I think actually...
Do you want me to pick this one up?
Please,
Yes, please, to begin with.
Yeah.
There are 10 spaces across the development. If I share my screen.
I've just had it, but I'll let you go.
Public Reports Pack, PDF page 38 shows the proposed layout. And it's disappeared, apologies, there we go. And you can see the visitor parking spaces are shown in this light pink colour on the layout.
That's the pink.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that is actually 2 spaces over what is required to accord with parking standards. So that's providing 2 additional.
So it does cover the parking standards. That's my
correct. There's actually 2 more spaces than required to meet the parking standards, and they are well distributed, as you can see across the layout.
Yeah, our parking standards is 1 per 5 dwelling, and as there's 40 dwellings, that's 8, and this gives 10. So it's
10. That was my. But
yeah. Do you have another question? Do you have another question, Councillor?
Yes.
Yeah.
The disabled parking, because I'm sorry to say, ladies and gentlemen, but one of the problems with the trucks getting into and out of some of these developments, my problem being is, are it the sufficient number? Is this a sufficient number for parking on sites now?
Are you talking about disabled spaces specifically?
As well, yes.
So the way our parking standards are worded is that disabled provision is required for communal parking areas, and 10% shall be able to be made into a disabled space if there is a defined need. So the layout as proposed doesn't specify, except in the parking court to the rear of the plot 36, 37 to 40 in this far right hand side. Let me share my screen again. So this space here is shown as disabled because the parking court in here is a shared parking area, whereas the other parking on the site, I understand, is allocated, and therefore, in terms of disabled parking provision, it is related to parking areas that are not allocated, and it is a 10% provision. Hopefully that answers your question.
It does answer my question, but unfortunately,
well, if we're going to debate later.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. I will.
Councillor Bandari.
Thank you, Chair. It's Councillor Ankush Pandari here. First of all, Joe, thanks for a very structured and a very comprehensive presentation, and thanks also for your time earlier today, to help clarify some of the points across these applications. While when you were presenting just now, you mentioned about 4 objections from neighbors. Maybe I missed it. What was our response to that? I mean, can you just help me understand?
Yes, certainly. So all 4 objections, there was 1 originally and then 3 that are referred to on the supplementary report, are all raised concerns about the routing of construction vehicles to the site. So basically they raise concerns to the SEMP, which is submitted as part of one of the conditions applications. Now this is something that Andy's colleague James has looked at very carefully, and his response, he requested that particular routing. As you will have seen from the photos, there is a footway moving from the site north along Tilehurst Lane, but if the vehicles were to be diverted to the south, there isn't a footway, and there would be additional or potential conflict between pedestrians and the construction vehicles if the vehicles went down in a southeasterly direction. And also, I think there's another element to this, is as you're well aware that there's this other development site for 53 units at the other end of Tilehurst Lane, and the local residents have been experiencing construction traffic in relation to that development. And I believe James considered also that there's almost a fairness element. It didn't seem that reasonable for us to continue using that routing for the development obviously, not obviously, but it would impact on more properties within Tilehurst Lane if they were to come from the southeast and come the length of Tilehurst Lane before going into the site. So that was the reason that the routing was chosen. But I think specifically on highway safety grounds, whilst the concerns of local residents are definitely noted, because it is quite narrow, James's comments did specify that there would be various widening works required to that part of Tilehurst Lane in front of the site access, and because of the differentiation between the pedestrian and vehicle flows, which is facilitated by the existing footway, that seemed to be the most appropriate way forward.
Sure. No, thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Virgo.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Joe, can I just ask you, this refers to item 7, going back to the water and your condition 922. If this all goes wrong in the sense that the flow doesn't work or the flow is interfered with, is this adopted by Thames Water to put right?
My understanding is that there would have to be an agreement between the developer and Thames Water. I'm afraid I'm not very expert on that, but we do have the council's drainage consultant on the call, I think, yeah. And perhaps I could ask him to see if he could provide any kind of background information to how the licensing agreement might work.
Yeah, Charlie, can you help on that if you can hear us?
Is it the drainage system in general for adoption? Perhaps you could repeat the question.
Yeah, Charlie, can you hear me? It's Councillor Virgo.
I can. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Can I just put the question? Because it's a fairly complicated way of dispersing land water drainage, and I can see what's been initiated, the question is, if it goes wrong, because it's not adopted, I think, by the council in any way, is Thames Water responsible to fix it, or will the residents be stuck?
That will be down to the management company that will be appointed and funded by the residents. And we've got a management plan submitted that we've approved as part of the application.
Okay, so they'd be responsible to fix it.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Councillor Brown.
Yes, on the same item, please. I'm thinking about the energy, the air source heat pumps. I didn't spot anything about the noise coming from air source heat pumps. Has any mention been made of that? Any account been taken of it?
The applicant has submitted details of the air source heat pumps, and they are a modern high specification that is used in many developments across the country. I don't think there's any indication there is a noise associated with them, but I think it's fairly marginal. And obviously all the properties would have them, and people would purchase those properties in the knowledge that that is how the renewable energy would be provided on the site. So I don't think that that's a fundamental issue. There's no suggestion that there would be noise and disturbance caused to existing residential properties, which are the other side of Tilehurst Lane.
Thank you.
Councillor Badibo.
Thank you, Councillor Guerrero. The red line application site, with the outline permission that was granted through appeal, is different from what is before us at the moment. Is that right?
No, that's not correct. So it is a reserved matters application that submits details pursuant to that outline permission. I think were you referring to the fact that the outline shown on the initial map extends further up the hillside?
Yes.
And the reason being is that because when the original outline application was submitted, it showed the 40 units at the sort of more southerly part of the site, and then what's called the Heritage Park, which is basically the area of public open space on that northwestern area. So the red line of the application site still includes that whole area, but the dwellings that have been proposed reflect the developable area that was originally considered by the appeal inspector. There hasn't been any change to that.
Okay, so can I just reassure me that the play area is still going to be delivered? And also there was a mention of a pond or something like that, and it was shown in the red line in the outline application.
So in relation to the play area, yes, details of the Heritage Park. So that forms a fundamental part of the Heritage Park. Details have been approved pursuant to another condition on this application, on the outline permission, and there was a condition on the appeal permission in terms of securing the implementation of the Heritage Park. So that will definitely go ahead. In terms of the pond, I think you might be referring to the attenuation pond.
Yes.
In the southeastern corner of the site, and that's fundamental to the drainage scheme. So yes, that will be delivered, and that's fundamental to the development.
Yes, thank you. It's just not shown in the proposed layout.
It's because it's the differences between the outline planning permission that was given for the whole site, and these 4 applications are reserved matters on the developed part of the site.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, no problem. Any other members have questions? Any online? No? Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to propose each one of these proposals separately, ask for a seconder, and then if you wish to debate that part, then we can do so, and we'll vote on each one of them separately, okay? So the first one is item 6, which is on page 46 of your agenda item papers. If I have a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Vice Chair. So this is for just the scale, layout, external appearance and landscaping. I've got to say, I think that the officers have done an awful lot of great work on this to get to this stage. And what is very pleasing on this is that we have achieved with the developer 25% of the 40 houses will be affordable houses, and not just the smaller ones, but some of the larger houses as well will be handed over as affordable dwellings which of course are some of the most needed properties for affordable homes. I think that the layout, the scale layout and the external appearance is very good, because there is absolutely no difference really between what are going to be affordable and what are going to be private dwellings. I don't think you're going to be able to see any difference between the two. So I think that with regards to the road layout and the external appearance, and of course the landscaping looks great, I think that this has been a very, very well worked on application. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. Really, just to reiterate, Chairman, what you said about the affordable housing, it's very pleasing that, in fact, the mix is not just with flats and small houses. It also includes family-type houses, 3-bedroomed houses, and also 1 4-bedroomed house. And I think that's a very progressive and ambitious outcome that I believe has been secured by the case officer in conjunction with the applicant. I'm also very pleased that the aspects of waste and recycling has received the recognition that I think it deserves, and is covered on both pages 34 and pages 44. So no, I'm very supportive of this application. I think it will finish up being a model estate. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Does any other member wish to speak? As no other members indicate they wish to speak, I'll put it to the vote. So this is for agenda item 6. All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. We move on then to the debate on agenda item 7, which is the conditions of the finished floor level, site organisation, working method statement, biodiversity strategy, and the drainage strategy. This again has been worked on quite fastidiously, and I think that some of the things that we've come to on this one is absolutely great, especially to do with the slopes that are leading up, because there is some quite significant land level changes in this. So to have this kind of access is great. Do I have a seconder for this, please? Thank you, Councillor Mossam. So do you wish to speak, Councillor Mossam, or do you reserve? Okay. Would any other member wish to speak on this? No, in that case, Councillor Mossam, do you want to say anything, or do you want to put it let's vote on it? All those in favour to approve, please show. That again is no. 1 abstention, I believe. Councillor Barnard, are you voting or no? No, right. That's unanimous. Thank you. Right, we move on then to number 9, which is details pursuant to conditions with regards to the energy demand statement and water efficiency. Do I have a seconder on that, please? That's the Vice Chair. Thank you. Okay, you will see that the energy demand statement has been listed, and I think it's quite forward thinking of the applicant for these groundwater heat pumps. Government at the moment are actually giving grants to people for groundwater heat pumps, and for an applicant, for a developer to actually be putting these in as standard, I think it's quite forward thinking, you know, it's got to be good for the environment, especially when you come to think of the price of energy these days. The seconder wish to speak?
Reserve, Chairman.
Reserve. Any other member wish to speak? Councillor Virgo.
Just a quick one, actually. I think the heat pumps are great, so you know, I'd obviously be in favour of that. But I'd like us also to look. I know this application isn't, but I'd like to raise it to water recycling, and I think that's something that we should consider in future on buildings. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Virgo. Any other member? Second, are you reserved? And anything?
Comment, Chairman, only say that I'm pleased that in fact this heat source pump option has come forward rather than solar panels, because it was clear that in terms of the positioning, the articulation of the houses, it would actually have been very visible from the adjacent area. And I think this outcome that is proposed, I think is a very positive step forward. So I think it's the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. And the last one is with regards to conditions regarding cycle parking, street lighting. Can I have a seconder for that one, please? Thank you, Councillor Baddiway. I don't think I've got to say anything on it. The cycle parking is to standard. Street lighting is to standard in the adopted areas, and where it isn't adopted, I think there's been quite sympathetic street lighting, which dims at night to help with the wildlife. Seconder, do you wish to speak? Any other member wish to speak? All those in favour, please show. That again is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, members, and thank you for your attendance this evening. And I wish you well and declare the meeting closed. Can you tell us when we're offline?